Hi Charlie, I'm Addie and I'm 14. I'm a freshman in high school. As someone who has a different opinion on college, what would you say the pros and cons are? Because I'm interested in political journalism.
I say college is a scam, but if you're going to find your life partner, that's actually a really good reason to go to college. And so, yeah, you could go learn some stuff. That's fine, I guess, or whatever. Just don't listen to your professors.
Why do conservatives hate university? If you've existed in the world for any period of time, especially in the West and especially in the United States of America, you'll likely notice a demonization of college and higher education. With this demonization, a good question to ask is, why do conservatives hate university? Colleges and universities are educational institutions. However, I'd argue that their primary function isn't necessarily to teach, but to cultivate students' critical thinking capabilities and self-teaching initiative. It is to turn the students from a passive receiver of information and into an active learner. For this, faculty fill the campus with relevant information, buying various items such as books, movies, documentaries, and other course-related material. These will then be placed in various locations around campus, encouraging students to explore, socialize, develop their initiative, and learn various systems such as how a library works. Students go to the classroom to begin their lesson, where they are given a brief and encouraged to go around campus, the internet, the local area, and perhaps even the world to collect, study, evaluate, and eventually present their findings. College curriculums are intended towards collaboration. They are designed for students to meet at the library to research and share information amongst each other without the tutor present. This not only encourages the development of critical thinking and self-teaching initiative, but it also encourages collaboration, the development of social skills, and the professional development of students towards adult life. Arguably, the most crucial function of a college is to encourage students to see themselves as their own teacher and the tutor as somebody who is there to help but is not the arbiter of all information. The point of college and higher education in general is that a person wants to seek out more information as they recognize that they don't know everything and they want to know as much as possible. A mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone. Religion and conservatism teach that one figure, usually a man, is the arbiter of truth and silences all questioning through a call to faith. College is the opposite. Religion and conservatism are about control. College and higher education are about growth. The two key words here are teach and cultivate. These two words are what separate state education, being primary, secondary, elementary, middle, and high school, from college and university. Typically, I'd argue that the focus of school below the college level is memory. You fill the students up with information over the course of a few months, the students regurgitate said information at the end of term, and then you match students' answers to the correct answers, giving students a score based upon how much correct information they've retained and regurgitated. This isn't critical thinking, as at no point have the students actually engaged with and integrated the information, enabling it to transform their understanding. They may be able to tell you the process of caring for a chicken from start to finish, but if you were to give them a chicken, they would have absolutely no idea what to do because their air quote learning is merely a copy and paste, reading and regurgitating for a tick box. This isn't to demonize school, as any school is better than no school, but simply to point out the differences, at least the differences I've noticed. Students may often feel disillusioned at school, and they may even feel inferior and stupid because they just don't like it. They then confuse school with education and end up not developing themselves because they think school is simply sitting bored at a desk while they're being lectured at about things they don't care about. It's not even that they don't care about the subject matter, but that the way it's taught doesn't engage them. This is again because students aren't engaging with the information, only copying and pasting it from a textbook to their memory. This isn't because they're stupid, but simply because nobody has ever engaged with them about anything. Engaging with students requires cultivating them and bringing them out of themselves, not simply barking at them for a handful of years and sending them off into the world. Just so we're clear, we love teachers. From all grade levels, we hate the system. I understand that teachers in American schools are demonized deliberately by right-wing media, and that you really are trying your best. I get it. Also, if you would like to know why teachers in America are demonized deliberately by right-wing media, it's so that Republicans and right-wingers can do a takeover of schools in order to install their own curriculums, which will be pure right-wing propaganda. That's the reason. This isn't a failure of the student, but a failure of the system, which is intentionally designed to churn out factory robots and not educated citizens capable of critical thinking. Because educated citizens capable of critical thinking are dangerous to billionaires, politicians, and religious leaders. There's a quote from a Ronald Reagan campaign strategist, a Republican strategist, political strategist, who said that we are in danger of an educated proletariat, and so they made higher education deliberately more difficult to get into. They don't want an educated population. Just in case you're only listening to this and you're not watching the screen, I'll read the quote for you. We are in danger of producing an educated proletariat. That's dynamite. We have to be selective on who we allow to go through higher education. If not, we will have a large number of highly trained and unemployed people. That's what happened in Germany. I saw it happen. I imagine the reference to a large number of highly trained and unemployed people is that people will be able to see that they're being lied to, and they won't like it very much. So if you keep people dull through constant slop and low-hum propaganda, they won't wake up and realize who's really taking advantage of them. It isn't immigrants, it isn't an other, it is billionaires and the political and financial elite. Now, depending on how far you are into right-wing media, you may have heard the term liberal agenda, or that colleges have a liberal bias. So the next question to ask is, why do conservatives accuse colleges of having a liberal agenda? Conservatism and religion have an already made-up worldview, that this is the way things are, and anything that says otherwise is a liar or an agent of Satan wanting to destroy our thing. That thing is usually culture, which is a euphemism for oppressive structure, which usually features rich white men sitting at the top. Look at the presidents of the United States and tell me we don't live in a patriarchy. Colleges usually have a more diverse student body and robust curriculum than state education. So when students go to college, they find themselves around people from all walks of life, perhaps for the first time ever. In this, they are developing critical thinking capabilities through learning, evaluating, collaborating, and following the evidence to the conclusion. They engage with one another, talk to one another about all manner of ideas and theories, and learn and grow. This supposed liberal bias is quite simply just being around other people and actively learning rather than staying in a bubble and engaging with stereotypes. It's considering that you don't already know everything and would like to pursue more knowledge. That's it. If you think you already know everything and aren't interested in learning more, well, that's where anti-intellectualism starts. Or the belief that learning is useless and rubbish.
As the governor said, we've had temperatures explode this summer. You may have learned that we broke a world record in the Death Valley, 130 degrees. But even in greater LA, 120 plus degrees. And we're seeing this warming trend make our summers warmer, but also our winters warmer as well. So I think one area of mutual agreement and priority is vegetation management. But I think we want to work with you to really recognize the changing climate and what it means to our forests, and actually work together with that science. That science is going to be key, because if we ignore that science and sort of put our head in the sand and think it's all about vegetation management, we're not going to succeed together protecting Californians.
Okay, it'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Well, I don't think science knows, actually.
It's a dangerous path to follow because it leaves you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. If you intentionally choose not to learn anything, you'll be swayed by everything. You won't know who you are, you won't know how the world works, and you'll be incorporated into the right-wing ecosystem which has an already constructed reality for you to exist in. The people who watch Fox News don't question it. That is a lack of critical thinking.
Okay, I'm not a moron, Jessica, despite what I sound like.
When students go to college, they learn that the world is much bigger than they thought. If you were told all your life that cities are violent hellscapes where the apocalypse is constantly seconds away, it's going to be a bit of a shock when you eventually go to a university city and see that people are just going about their everyday business. Sitting outside a coffee shop, eating food prepared by street vendors, dodging traffic, reading, cycling, and just enjoying the convenience of city life. This isn't to say that cities are perfect, but that it isn't a violent hellscape of lawless anarchism. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the ability and willingness to take in information from all angles, learning, evaluating, collaborating, and following the evidence to the conclusion. College threatens conservatism into irrelevancy because it helps develop critical thinking through the collecting and evaluating of information, and right-wing media demonize it as being left-wing indoctrination because they don't want you to learn. Critical thinking is a threat to conservatism because conservatism is about rules, rigid hierarchy, obeying authority, extremely limited thinking, and the fear that others are out to get you. They want you to stay in your bubble, in your nice little white suburb, while TV and newspapers fill your head with fear-mongering propaganda, because fear-mongering propaganda is immensely profitable, and also it helps keep the hierarchy that currently exists. If you're scared, you'll continue watching and reading, having your biases confirmed, and growing both advertising rates and profits for large corporations. There isn't a liberal bias, but a conservative conservative one. Right-wing narratives have to be constructed. They are allergic to nuance, and they paint the world in a black and white manner, with their intent being to keep you as scared as possible. Because if you're scared, they can construct a politician who vows to destroy the mythical enemy and restore the country to safety. Law and order, it's all lies. Think of it another way. When Elon Musk's Twitter AI Grok was asked who the biggest spreader of mis- and disinformation was, it answered Elon Musk. This is because Grok is an AI that doesn't have an agenda, yet at least, and has access to information from across the political spectrum. So if somebody continually platforms conspiratorial hokum like white genocide and great replacement, which only exist on the far right, it will naturally come to the conclusion that Elon Musk is the biggest spreader of disinformation, simply because the stuff he's saying is incorrect. It's not real, it's not happening. In response to this, Musk didn't change his mind or even consider that he may be wrong, which is key to critical thinking. Instead, he attempted to break Grok's brain. That's bias. Again, he didn't stop to consider that he may be wrong. Instead, he attempted to stop his AI from learning. He heard critical feedback and hit Grok in the head with a digital brick. That's what he wants to do to you.
The more religious, the less educated, and the poorer, the higher the birth rate. Low on the religion, high on education, and at high on income, that has the lowest birth rate by far.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. The only way he knows to increase birth rates is to make people poor and uneducated and more religious. The wealthiest man on the planet, getting richer every day, is really concerned about lowering birth rates and thinks that the only indicators for high birth rates are being poor, uneducated, and religious.
He wants to break your brain. Conservatism wants you stupid because conservatism is about control. Low education means more babies because less understanding of reproduction, which means more workers for billionaires. They want more people who are unintelligent, who will do as they're told, and not even fathom that they can demand more. What a depressing view of humanity. Then again, we can't really expect anything different from a man who used the term empathy exploit.
Fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response.
Just to remind you, this man has children and a lot of them, and empathy is the key driving force behind taking care of children and taking care of other people in general. It's not like he'd walk off stage at a political rally and just leave his child behind in an unfamiliar and incredibly loud environment. Only a bad parent would do that.
You know, I always say we have to be protective of our geniuses because we don't have too many, but that one is... I watched his rocket come down about 3 months ago, and I thought it was crashing. I was talking to somebody on the phone, by the way.
Critical thinking can break you out of this control, so they attack the entities which provide it. Through their various media outlets, they condition you against higher education, because if you don't go to college and develop critical thinking capabilities, you're easier to control. So, to keep you under their spell, they build out right-wing media infrastructure and fill your head with whatever nonsense benefits them. Conservatism inherently is internally inconsistent as it revolves around putting up arbitrary barriers, ensuring separation and exclusion. White racists are primarily concerned with what is and isn't white. That is a barrier, and an irrational barrier. Ironic, a nation that claims to be Christian following the teachings of Christ is anti-empathy. Jesus Christ was literally a brown guy from the Middle East who preached socialism and kindness. I don't think anybody's told America that. If Jesus were to go to America today, he'd be deported. College, as a byproduct of simply being a place where people come together to learn and grow, threatens conservative ideals simply through its existence. Put another way, it's difficult to negatively stereotype people if the audience is interacting with those negatively stereotyped, because they can simply turn around and say, well, that's not true. However, cognitive dissonance, which is the ability to hold contradictory beliefs, can kick in, which is where the phrase "one of the good ones" comes from. If you're continually told that all undocumented are criminals, but you know many undocumented and they are hardworking and love their families, you either come to the understanding that media fearmongers, or you fail to understand and call them one of the good ones. Conservatives and right-wing media don't want you to learn, because if you learn, you start putting the pieces together. And if you start putting the pieces together, you threaten their power, whether intentionally or not. Rupert Murdoch would probably have an aneurysm if a large portion of his audience suddenly looked at Fox News and said, wait, hold on a second, that's not true. I would love to experience that one day personally. Not an aneurysm, I mean, seeing Rupert Murdoch Whatever. Hell, some billionaires are even trying to put together right-wing universities. They place you in a room with a small group of people, nobody has access to technology, and they simply lecture at you. The lack of access to phones and laptops is done under the guise of technology being a distraction, but an added side effect is that students aren't able to look up information. So if they're being lied to, how would they know?
UATX currently employs about 20 faculty members with no tenure system, and classes are small seminars with 15 or 16 students.
Savagery. I want us to think a little bit about what this is. There's a sense that this is a politically incorrect word, right? You won't see cell phones because we ban them. You also won't see laptops. It distracts you. What helps you think is having a text and having a smart person to talk to.
A central facet of the university's classroom is the Chatham House Rule, which is a principle that ensures confidentiality in discussions to encourage open and honest dialogue.
If someone says something unacceptable to people or shocking or problematic, you can't run out and say, Bobby said something racist or Susie actually is a Zionist. You can't do this.
This is the opposite of critical thinking. As mentioned earlier, tutors aren't supposed to be the primary source of information. In this project, however, they are. This isn't education, this is indoctrination. Also, isn't it funny that in a place of supposed higher education, the thing these people are most concerned about isn't trying to get accredited, but ensuring that students who may hear inappropriate and offensive language cannot report what they've heard? That's really weird. They take away your only method of fact-checking through lack of technology. They're primarily concerned about saying nasty things, with the only class in the video being about downplaying American slavery.
If someone says something unacceptable to people or shocking or problematic, you can't run out and say, Bobby said something racist or Susie actually is a Zionist. You cannot do this. And what that means is that students don't have to conform. They can actually say what they think.
That academic freedom is part of what attracted Professor Coleman Hughes to UATX. He's teaching a course called The Legacy of Slavery.
At most elite universities, in a course on that topic, you would not read the body of work of, say, Thomas Sowell. He gives an overview of the global history of slavery, not narrowly tailored to the United States. Most American high school students graduate believing that slavery was basically confined to the United States, when really that represents less than 1% of slavery broadly construed over the history of Earth.
And oh, they just so happen to be incredibly well funded. The people backing this project are wanting to get their money's worth. If something is well funded and they don't want you running down the hall after Jeff appears to downplay slavery, you are the product. What these people want is to control what you think and influence your vote. They do this by building out right-wing media infrastructure and filling your head with their nonsense, conditioning you against hearing anything different. I have a personal pet theory that Jessica Tarlov is only on Fox News to be, of course, one of the token Democrats, but also to condition the Fox News audience against listening to a Democrat or anything critical, thus ensuring an echo chamber.
He makes, I think, $8 million a day while 20,000 federal workers are getting fired. Well, Head Start program, he's like...
Kaylee, please respond to Jessica's falsehoods, a litany of them.
And we're also supposed to believe that he's 6'3" and 224 pounds, which makes him an NFL wide receiver. There are, and we forgot, remember his original doctor who forged that letter about him? Like, come on here.
Come on, is actually comparing him to this.
Take a lesson out of your own playbook and admit that this is going badly. Take the L. The Democrats are up 4 to 7 points on the generic ballot. Do you think that that means that Donald Trump is doing a good job?
Oh, that was a rhetorical question? I just zoned out. I was trying to think of things that are not on the shelves. You said there's empty shelves. What are you talking about? What's not on the shelves that you say is not there?
Well, have you gone into a drugstore?
Yeah, I have, Jessica.
Really?
And everything's locked up because of you.
No.
Baby formula, I remember that wasn't on the shelves.
That at least a half a dozen of the contracts that he's talking about happened under the Biden administration. And that is something that Trump likes to do. He likes to show up and then take credit for things that
what about the other half?
People did. The other half, I'll give it to you. $300 billion of the $600 billion. But don't go out there and say you got $1.4 trillion in investment when you didn't really. Or at least give a nice, signal to the previous guy and say, hey, actually,
there is no previous guy. We already know there was no Joe Biden. So it's kind of hard to give him any credit.
He does have a birth certificate, and we did see him. Yes, he's not African.
Well, he claimed he was a Jewish Puerto Rican truck driver. Greg,
aren't we all?
You seem to want to challenge some of her assertions.
Greg's excited that I'm back.
I just like annoying her, that's all.
Me too.
The only thing these people care about is your vote, because to billionaires, democracy is dangerous. How can they do what they want, such as stealing your grandmother's social security, if the general public is capable of critical thinking and have the right to vote? They might, dare I say, not vote in the interests of billionaires and capitalists. Going back to that quote from Ronald Reagan's political advisor, we cannot have an educated proletariat, so we have to make college basically impossible to get in. And that's why conservatives hate university, because the more you know, the less they can get you.